Today's video is brought to you by Card Kingdom. And right now you can get this sweet Scoop Soldier sticker when you order over on cardkingdom.com. Just mention in your order notes that you want a Scoop Soldier sticker when you check out. Hey friends, it's Tomer and welcome back to Budget Commander. Commander 2020 pre-constructed decks have arrived, and that means it's time for another round of $20 Precon upgrades. I'll first go over how each pre-constructed deck plays, why you should buy it, and the various directions that you can upgrade the deck and make it your own. Keep in mind that these videos are abbreviated versions of the upgrade article, so if you want a more detailed look at this deck and more upgrade options, then check out the article linked in the video description below. This video will be covering Symbiotic Swarm, a grindy keyword soup Abzan deck that uses our graveyard to fuel our keyword soup strategy. The deck runs plenty of creatures that are loaded with keywords or grant keyword counters, casting them or milling them into our graveyard. These keyword soup creatures are then used as fuel for various payoff cards. Eventually, the deck wins by overloading our army with powerful keywords or animating a giant beater to smash face with. The Precon excels at pressuring the table with hard-to-kill threats and repeatedly reanimating them if they manage to be dealt with. To figure out how to properly upgrade the deck, let's first look at the unaltered deck list. Out of the box, Symbiotic Swarm is a solid creature-focused deck that does a good job supporting both graveyard and keyword strategies. I count 17 cards to deal with your graveyard, either milling yourself or interacting with cards in your graveyard. I also count 26 cards to deal with keywords, either granting keywords to your creatures or are keyword soup creatures that other cards will use as fuel. There's also a decent amount of overlap between these two themes, with at least 8 cards that care about both keyword soup and your graveyard. It's clear that Symbiotic Swarm is primarily a keyword soup deck that uses its graveyard to help fuel its keyword soup strategy and give it late game punching power. Like all the precons, Symbiotic Swarm comes with multiple potential commanders, each focusing on a different archetype to build around. For this video, however, I'll be tuning the deck around the commander Kathril Aspect Warper. Kathril is the face of Symbiotic Swarm and is the best representative of what the deck wants to do. Fill up your graveyard with creatures that are loaded with useful keywords, then use your graveyard to fuel your army. Kathril does exactly that. When it enters the battlefield, Kathril puts up to 11 different keyword counters distributed as you choose on creatures you control based on the keywords the creatures in your graveyard have. Kathril then gets a +1/+1 counter for each keyword counter you put on a creature with its ability, up to a whopping 11 +1/+1 counters. You could distribute these keyword counters across multiple creatures, but usually the best approach will be loading Kathril up with most of the keywords and start killing opponents with your enormous, unstoppable commander. I recommend building the Kathril deck as a Voltron keyword soup deathball. The plan is to quickly and consistently fill our graveyard with all the keywords that Kathril cares about, then cast our commander, which immediately turns into a 14/14 with flying, first strike, double strike, death touch, hexproof, indestructible, lifelink, menace, reach, trample, and vigilance. We then use our nigh unstoppable commander to one-shot our opponents with commander damage. If the plan fails, then we just mass reanimate all the creatures in our graveyard and win with those instead. So the first part of this plan is our keyword soup creatures that will fuel Kathril from the graveyard. We want at least one of each of the 11 keywords that Kathril cares about showing up on our creatures, so we can pump Kathril up by 11 if all of them are in our graveyard. The best keyword soup creatures then are the ones that have multiple desirable keywords, with the best being indestructible, hexproof, and double strike, since those benefit Kathril the most. This is why the single best creature in the entire deck is actually Zetalpa Primal Dawn, which is probably the first and last time anyone gets to say that about Zetalpa. Zetalpa gives us a whopping 5 keywords by itself, including the highly important indestructible and double strike. Our goal with our keyword soup creatures is to cover all 11 keywords with the least amount of creatures needed to do so. The slimmer our keyword soup package, the better, since these cards are subpar if we see them anywhere outside of our graveyard, and too many of them will only clog up our deck and make it unplayable. Next, we need to quickly and consistently get our keyword soup creatures into our graveyard so we can cast Cthulhu for maximum value. The best cards to do this are graveyard tutors like Buried Alive, Corpse Connoisseur, and Gerard's Orders, which lets us search our library for the creatures and put them directly into our graveyard. Just casting Buried Alive alone could put in the graveyard Zetalpa Primal Dawn, Basara Tower Archer, and Leyline Prowler, netting you 9 out of the 11 keywords and already making Cthulhu a lethal threat. The next best ways to put our keyword soup creatures into our graveyard are self-mill cards like Satyr Wayfinder and Deadbird's Chant to randomly put them from our library into our graveyard, or with discard outlets like Greater Good to get them out of our hand. These cards also do a good job setting up our mass reanimation spells like Living Death and Eerie Ultimatum, which is a solid plan B for our deck in case Cthulhu gets shut down, letting us take all the creatures we dumped into our graveyard over the course of the game and put them directly onto the battlefield. So that's pretty much how I plan on upgrading the Precon, a Cthulhu Voltron deck fueled by a powerful graveyard theme. We will add more cards that strengthen this plan and are free to cut any cards that don't fit what we're doing. Now that we've covered what type of cards we're looking to add, let's identify the general strengths and weaknesses of the Precon by using a deck building checklist. As I often explain in my Budget Commander articles, every time I build a rough draft of a deck, I use a deck building checklist to make sure the deck has its fundamentals properly covered, such as mana, interaction, and card advantage. This gives me a reference point to compare to the deck and see which areas may need improvement. My general ratio is 50 mana, lands and ramp, usually a 37-13 split, 10 card draw, cards that net you 2 or more cards in hand, 6 targeted removal, split between creature, artifact, enchantment removal, and counter magic, 3 board wipes, creature light decks might want 1 more, creature heavy decks might want 1 less, 2 graveyard recursion, 2 flexible tutors, but for higher budgets I recommend more tutors, 1 graveyard hate, and at least 1 surprise I win card, something that can win games the turn you cast it without too much setup. That's always my starting point, which is then tweaked to suit the individual deck strategy and further tweaked with playtesting. I usually find this checklist immensely useful for figuring out quick ways to improve the deck in question. Let's see what the rough ratios are for Symbiotic Swarm and how it compares. I count 47 mana, 38 lands and 9 ramp, 5 card draw, 6 targeted removal, 4 board wipes, 9 graveyard recursion, 0 flexible tutors, 1 graveyard hate, and 0 surprise I win cards. Now that we've checked out the general ratios, let's take a closer look at the cards included here. The lands here are pretty good. Having mana-fixing lands that enter untapped is important, and Symbiotic Swarm offers some good ones such as Command Tower, Exotic Orchard, and Caves of Koilos, but not as many as I'd hope. There's a few good utility lands here as well, with Crows and Verge ramping, Gavany Township adding counters to our creatures, and Nesting Grounds being a sweet new way to transfer counters from one permanent to another. The ramp here is a bizarre mix of good and terrible options. We have a thematic option with Karamatra, God of Harvest, which comes with an indestructible keyword, along with staples like Sakura Tribe Elder and Soul Ring. But then there's subpar cards like Commander Sphere, the terrible Bonder's Ornament, and the completely out of place Cartographer's Hawk. Seriously, the Hawk is a pretty bad ramp card in general that might make the cut in some non-green decks, but why in the world would a green deck with land ramp run it? Cartographer's Hawk is a horrible inclusion in the deck, clashing with your superior green land ramp and generally being subpar at best. It should have been in any of the non-green precons, not here. This section needs a lot of work. Symbiotic Swarm has the unfortunate honor of having the least amount of card draw out of all the precons. There's some good options here, like the flexible Abzan Charm, the classic Harmonize, and the thematic Nikara Lair Scavenger, which rewards us for having counters of any kind on our creatures. We need more here, however, and the precon's high amount of graveyard recursion does not change that fact. The target removal here is solid and flexible. D-Spark is one of my all-time favorite budget removal options. Abzan Charm can draw cards if we don't need to remove a creature, and Acidic Slime comes with the Death Touch keyword. This section is a solid foundation, but could be better. I like the idea of leaning hard on creatures that can wipe the board since our deck has so much creature synergy. Cataclysmic Gearhulk, Kalemne's Captain, and Sunblast Angel are all thematic options, but they're also a little bit clunky to use. the deck is probably better off just running generic board wipes, or at least better creatures that can wipe the board. Graveyard Recursion is the big highlight of the deck. Once we've reached the late game and got our graveyard filled, the deck's high amount of Graveyard Recursion is what lets it grind out the other precons. We've got some sweet thematic options that both self-mill and recur like Nyx Weaver and Team, Luminous Enigma, and even some recursion that works from the graveyard like Unburial Rites. There's a lot of great cards here, but at least 2 here that I'd cut. None of the precons come with any non-land tutors, which makes sense since this is an introductory product and new players who are unfamiliar with the deck wouldn't know what cards they should be searching for with tutors. That said, adding tutors helps make the deck more consistent and flexible, so we should add them in our upgrades section. Angel of Finality is a thematic source of graveyard hate in our deck. We could expand this, but it's a good start. I didn't find anything in the precon that can end the game with little setup. To be fair, the deck naturally thrives in the late game, and dropping down a Chroma Angel of Wrath or Zetalpa Primal Dawn on their own sort of fits what I'm looking for, but having a more consistent win condition also would be nice. Now that we've identified the precon strengths and weaknesses and what cards the deck wants more of, we're ready for our $20 upgrade. Keep in mind that this list was under $20 at the time of this recording, but card prices are currently volatile and may change drastically by the time this video is released. First, let's add some more good keyword soup cards. We don't want too many of these since we only need 1 of each keyword in our graveyard to get the maximum benefit, and too many of them will start clogging up our deck, but there's a few standouts that can go a long way. Sunblade Angel is one of the best here, bringing 4 different keywords. To make room for them, let's first cut the Impetus cycle. I love political combat cards, but they don't fit here. The next Impetus is cut for Remnant Hydra, which brings 3 useful keywords. The final Impetus is cut for Basara Tower Archer, which brings Hexproof and Reach, 2 of the rarer keywords in our deck. Next, we're cutting out the cards that deal with keyword counters. We want keyword soup creatures in our graveyard where these keyword counters just don't work. We're taking out Nikara Lair Scavenger, a powerful card draw engine in some decks but not here. Since Nikara is the only creature with the Menace keyword in the precon, we're replacing it with Kunaros, Hound of Aetherios, which gives us Menace plus 2 other keywords. Yannick Scavenging Sentinel is neat for a blink or sacrifice strategy, which isn't this deck. We're taking out for Corpse Connoisseur, an excellent graveyard tutor. Tyam, Luminous Enigma is incredibly powerful when properly built around, but is far less effective here. We're taking it out for Buried Alive, the single best graveyard tutor in our deck. Avenging Huntmonder can give Cathril double strike, but we already have a way better creature that gives us the keyword along with many more. Let's find that creature instead with Gerard's Orders. Solemn Recruit gives us double strike, but not much else. We're taking it out for Gravebreaker Lamia, another great graveyard tutor that can put our better double strike creatures in the graveyard. Majestic something something, a word I just can't pronounce, kind of fits our keyword theme, except it's weak since we're not a go wide deck. Let's take it out for yet another excellent graveyard tutor, Final Parting. Soulflare also kind of fits our theme, but we don't want to exile our keyword creatures. Let's take it out for one of the best card draw options in the deck, Greater Good, which acts as both card draw and a way to discard our keyword soup creatures or sacrifice them. Hornet Queen is a neat pillow fort card with 2 keywords, but I much prefer Izoni Thousand Eyed here, which can take advantage of our full graveyard to give us an army we can sacrifice for card draw. Vitality Hunter is overcosted and isn't impressive. We're taking it out for Painful Truce, super efficient card draw. Ajani Unyielding is flexible card draw or removal, but isn't really good at either here. It's swapped out for Majida the Lion, an excellent repeatable board wipe that doubles as a discard outlet for our keyword soup creatures. Free spells are usually busted, but Obscuring Haze is certainly the weakest of the bunch and isn't really needed when Cathril is on the board. We're taking it out for Mask of Memory, an excellent source of card draw that is also a discard outlet. Blood Curdle is overcosted removal. We're taking it out for Nature's Claim, one of the best, most efficient removal spells. Unbreakable Bond is overcosted reanimation. We're taking it out for the Binding of the Titans, efficient mill, graveyard hate, and recursion. Ever After is okay reanimation, but we can do way better with Eerie Ultimatum, costing 1 more mana to get back pretty much everything in our graveyard. Mimic Vad is a card I love in sacrifice decks or token decks, but it lacks synergy here. We're taking it out for Siphon Mind, another super efficient card draw spell with bonus discard. Together Forever would be neat if the deck is still counter heavy, but after these changes it's not going to be as good. We're taking it out for Necrologia, one of the best card draw spells in the deck, able to fill our entire hand and graveyard at the same time if you draw enough cards with it. Finally, let's work on the deck's mana. First, we're taking out Abzan Ascendancy for Skull Prophet, which is both ramp and self-mill. Then let's take out Netherburn Altar for Leyline Prowler, ramp with 2 useful keywords. Bonder's Ornament sucks, so we're replacing it with Farseek. Commander Sphere isn't bad, but ramp and growth is simply better here. We can actually shave off 2 lands here for more ramp. First, let's take out Grim Backwoods for Far Wanderings, super ramp in this deck since we can consistently activate Threshold. Then we take out a Plains for Wood Elves. Finally, let's swap out a Swamp for Tainted Field. Putting it all together, here is the Symbiotic Swarm Precon deck list with the $20 upgrade installed. With just $20, we've transformed the Precon into a more focused Voltron Graveyard deck that is far more powerful than the original version. If you're interested in a more in-depth look at the upgrade options and what a $200 upgrade of Symbiotic Swarm looks like, then check out the accompanying article linked in the video description below. And that's it for the Commander 2020 Precon upgrades. I always have fun doing these each year, and hopefully this helps you out with your own upgrades. Now I'm going to go back to the usual budget Commander brews, so until then friends, see ya! Thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, help us out by clicking that like button down below. And to keep up with the latest and greatest, click on the subscribe button, and don't forget to hit that bell icon to get alerts whenever we have new videos. And if you want to check out similar videos, click on the links here and here.